Salve, hi. In this lesson we are going to be looking at this painting. It's a very interesting painting, isn't it? As you can see, it's composed of 9 squares and they are joined to each other, and it's influenced by Mondrian. Pretty poor imitation, really. Early 20th century modernist. Yeah, actually nothing like that at all. What we have here is a representation of something that the Roman grammarian Fuero talks about, and it is a Latin square for learning the Latin verb. The Roman grammarian Fuero observed that if he made a chart with 9 boxes, he could very elegantly display the Latin verb. And he talks about this at some length. He was quite enamored about this whole idea of the beautiful arrangement of the Latin verb, and he thought Latin verbs are pretty amazing things. Unlike the extreme mess that English verbs are, Latin verbs are indeed elegant, whereas the English verb, well, it's a bit sloppy, to put it mildly. We're going to be looking at the entire form of the Latin verb, using one verb, esse, E-S-S-E, the verb to be, esse. Notice that I'm pronouncing each S separately. It's esse. The first S is in the first syllable, the second S is in the second syllable, esse. And so it is in Latin when you have any doubled consonant. The first appearance of that consonant, the first one goes into the syllable, and the second one goes into the next syllable. We don't do that in English. If you're an Italian, you won't have any trouble with this, but English people don't automatically break double letters up into 2 syllables. Get used to doing it. Esse. Esse. Not esse, but esse. Now, the verb to be. We have a chart that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 squares, with the middle square split into 2, giving us 10 spaces, but 9 squares. And the Latin verb fits into this very elegantly. The way we're going to do it is this. I'm only going to deal with the first person. That's I. At singular first person. So first person, singular, I. That's the only grammatical form of this verb we're going to look at. Usually what's done is, in most grammar books we will look at, and most grammar books I've seen anyway, we look at one tense and we'll go through all the different persons. I think it's actually a lot easier to just stick with one person, and right from the very beginning of the course to look at all of the tenses, so that when you start to read literature, and I will encourage you as soon as possible to get hold of interlinear texts of Latin, and just start to plow through as much of the Latin as possible to expose your brain to the structure and form, and how the words start to change, etc. The more Latin you pour into your head, the better you'll get, and the faster you will improve. So, first person, singular, that's I. You will notice that when we're doing this, I am not going to be providing a Latin word for I, because the verb itself in Latin contains the person that's being talked about. We have different tenses in the Latin verb, and we have 2 moods. And we'll be talking about what the 2 moods are that are on this chart, and the tenses that are on this chart. The The first tense is the present tense. That's action that's taking place now. Now in English we have two forms of the present. We have a form that's, for example, I am, and another form, I am being. Both present tense. I think, I am thinking. In Latin we don't have these two forms. We simply have one form. Sum. S-U-M. Sum, meaning I am, or I am being. Sum. S-U-M. At this point, I want you to press pause, but don't do it yet because I want to tell you to do something. Get a sheet of paper, a large sheet of paper, A4 or whatever, and I want you to make a large noughts and crosses diagram on the paper. Use up the whole sheet, and put a diagonal in the center square. So you might want to press pause, get your bit of paper, draw your lines on it roughly, and then come back. In the first square, I want you to write S-U-M, sum. This is the present tense and it's indicative. What does indicative mean in terms of the Latin verb? One way of understanding it, and we'll just explain it this way for now, is just like an indicator in the car tells you whether the car's going to turn right or left, it tells you what the car's doing. The indicative mood tells you what is going on in the main thrust of the sentence. It indicates the main action in the sentence. That's our indicative mood. Indicative. Sum, I am. Then we have two forms of the past tense. We have a past that's action that's going on over time. And then we have a past of action that is of shorter duration. How to understand this? I'll tell you a very short little story. Brutus was planning to kill Julius Caesar, and Brutus stabbed Caesar. End of story. It's a very, very short little story. So Brutus was planning. This is action that's ongoing in time. It takes some time to take place. Brutus was planning, and then Brutus stabbed. That's very quick action. It's of shorter duration, and compared to this one, it's of a different nature. So if something is ongoing, the city was situated on the curve of the river, that would be this kind of description, right? And the Roman soldiers advanced. That would be that. So we'd have the city was situated on the curve of the river, and the soldiers attacked. So different forms of the past, doing different types of jobs. And Latin is very particular about separating these two. So we have eram, E-R-A-M, eram, which we can simply translate into English as I was. So this is the I was of the ongoing wasness, the wasness that takes time to be. Eram, I was being. And here we have fui, F-U-I, I was, or I have been, the wasness of action that's sharp action, like the stabbing action. So you think of this as the sharp action, this is the blunt action, the planning action, the ongoing action. So, sum, S-U-M, sum, eram, E-R-A-M, eram, and fui, F-U-I. Present, imperfect, perfect. Then we have action that's in the past but further back in time. what's called the pluperfect, the more than perfect. So here's perfect, and further back in time is more than perfect. Another little short story, even shorter than last time. Julius Caesar said, I had been governor of Gaul. I had been. I had been. This is the pluperfect. Fueram. F-U-E-R-A-M. So you can write that in this square. F-U-E-R-A-M. Fueram. And this is the pluperfect. So we have our present, and we have our imperfect, our perfect, our pluperfect. We have sum, eram, fueram. So action that's taking place now, sum, I am. Action that's ongoing in the past, eram. Action in the past that's of a much more rapid duration compared to this action, fui. An action that's further back in time, fueram. Fueram. And one moment, because I've lost the drawing pin. I'm back. So, and we have our drawing pin. Sum in the present tense. I'm going to give you something to remember it by. Cogito, I think, or I am thinking. Cogito, ergo, therefore, sum, I am, or I am being. Cogito, ergo, sum. I think, therefore, I am. That's René Descartes. Cogito, ergo, sum. In the first person singular of the present indicative. Cogito, ergo, sum. I think, therefore I am, or I am thinking, therefore I am being. And this, of course, is a prerequisite if you wish to learn Latin. Cogito, ergo, sum. I think, therefore I exist. And of course, if you want to learn Latin, it does help if you exist. Present, imperfect, perfect, pluperfect, and our center square is the future. So in our center square little story, Brutus says, I will be the savior of Rome. I will be the savior of Rome. And this is why I am planning. This is why I am planning. This is why he was planning. And he killed Caesar. Here, he killed Caesar. He was planning. He says, I will be, in the future, I will be the savior of Rome. Julius Caesar had been governor of Gaul. And Julius Caesar says, I think, therefore I am, in the present. So here we have future. And that is erro, E-R-O, erro. So sum, S-U-M, eram, E-R-A-M, fui, F-U-I, fueram, F-U-E-R-A-M, and the future, erro, I will be. And this is all for the indicative, the red part. The orange part. In many introductory grammars for students, the orange part is left till much, much later on. Now this causes a lot of difficulty because, especially if you're going to take my advice and start to read interlinear texts as quickly as you possibly can, you're going to start encountering verbs that are in the form that are in the orange part, and you're going to have no idea what on earth's going on. We need to think of this orange part as belonging to the upper part. It's got a name. It's either called subjunctive or it's called conjunctive, and that means underjoining or with joining. And as you can see, it sort of sits underneath the indicative on this chart. What do I mean by it's under-joined? Well, as I said, the indicative gives you the main verb, the main thrust of the sentence. For example, I know. I know. That's indicative. It's me. I know. I'm doing it. I know. I know who you are. I know who you are. I know is up here. But I know who you are, that bit about you being is not up here anymore. It's not indicative. It's something that is underjoined to my knowledge. So I know who you are. I know who you are. That's how the subjunctive can work in Latin. Now, as you may notice, the translation in English is the same. You are. I could even say, I know who I am. Or I could say, I know who I am. So, I know who I am. Whereas, I am would be up here. I am. But if it's subjoined to my knowledge, I know who I am, it becomes subjoined or conjoined to the subjunctive, the underjoined form of the verb, or the conjunctive, the withjoined form of the verb. Now, one reason why this form gives English speakers headaches is because the English verb has a very badly formed subjunctive. The whole idea of subjunctive in English is very poorly developed. And what I'm going to do now to show you how messy the English subjunctive is I'm going to run through these forms, giving you the English subjunctive in one of the ways the subjunctive can be used, and that is to indicate possibility or uncertainty, which in English we use the form may or might. So here, I may be. I may be. Now that's all very clear. You know it's present. I may be, and it's something that's uncertain. So present uncertainty, I may be. But let's head now into this continuous past. I might be. Now, if I was to say to you, I might be, would you know that was the continuous past from the English? No, probably not. And if I were to say to you, I may have been, would you know that that was the perfect of this possible form? Or if I were to say to you, I would have been, would you automatically be able to stick it into the pluperfect box? No, I doubt it. And if I were to say to you, which box do you put I will have been in? Well, you'd probably look at me like I'm nuts, because it's not something you say too often, I will have been. So the English verb forms are incredibly unhelpful. Very unhelpful, which is why the subjunctive is difficult for English speakers, because when we are translating it in this form of possibility, English doesn't help us. But our nice chart will help us. A lot of the time in Latin, the subjunctive and the conjunctive forms are translated exactly the same as the indicative form. It's simply a grammatical difference that means that this form is being used. I know who you are. That's grammatical necessity. That means that the you are section is it's conjoined or subjoined to my knowledge. I know who you are. In reported speech, if I am saying something that someone said, then also that reported speech is going to be subjunctive. It's underjoined because I am reporting it. So I am indicative up here, and what's being reported is underjoined to my reporting. So it's in the subjunctive. But the translation in English is going to be identical because we don't do this in English. So let's run through the subjunctives. We have our present, and then we have It's the same here. It maps across. Present, present. Imperfect in the second square, imperfect in the second square. Perfect in the third square, perfect in the third square. Pluperfect in the fourth square, pluperfect in the fourth square. And here we have a future, which we call the second future. First future, second future. And let's have a look at the forms. Sim, S-I-M, sim. Sim, S-I-M. That's the present subjunctive, sim. And the present indicative, sum. Sum, sim. Then we have our imperfect subjunctive, essem, E-S-S-E-M, essem, essem. Imperfect subjunctive. And it relates, of course, to our imperfect indicative, which is eram. Eram, essem. Here we have our third square, so it's present, imperfect, perfect, present, imperfect, perfect. So perfect, and it's subjunctive. Fuerim, fuerim, F-U-E-R-I-M, fuerim. So present, imperfect, perfect, pluperfect in the subjunctive. Fuissem, F-U-I-S-S-E-M, fuissem. So here we have our indicative pluperfect, which is fueram, fueram. And here we have our subjunctive imperfect. Our indicative pluperfect and our subjunctive pluperfect. Fuissem, fuissem. Even though I've been doing this for some years now, it's very easy when you're discussing a chart like this to, for me anyway, to get a bit discombobulated, especially when I'm can't edit the text, running through it once only. So here we go. Sim, essem, fuerim, fuissem, and our second future, fuero. Fuero, I will have been. Fuero, fuero. And ero, I will be. Ero, I will be. Fuero, I will have been, or I may have been. Now remember, all these subjunctives can have the same meaning as the indicatives when they are subjoined to the indicative or conjoined to it. Or they can indicate possibility. So if you want to say you're uncertain about something, you won't use an indicative form, you'll use a subjunctive form. He may know that, he may do this, he may whatever. Whenever you're going to use may or possibility in English, you will use a subjunctive. And the subjunctive can also, in Latin, be used for a very polite command form. Please be quiet. Takeas, takeas. Please be quiet. It's a subjunctive form, and it's a very polite way of issuing a command. So that's our subjunctive, and it's sort of like a mirror of the indicative. It's not that hard at all. What I suggest you do is make a few of these noughts and crosses diagrams, blank ones, and start to fill them in until you can do it by heart, and then you will know the basic structure of the Latin verb. So present, imperfect, perfect, pluperfect, future. Present, imperfect, perfect, pluperfect, future. Sum, eram, fui, fueram, ero. Sim, essem, fuerim, fuissem, fuero. Learn it. Vale.